Welcome back. Another round of primaries today, and enough delegates are at stake that both President Biden and former President Trump could clinch their party's 2024 nominations. Hawaii is holding GOP caucuses today, while Washington, Mississippi, and Georgia are holding their state primaries for both Republicans and Democrats. But the main focus is on the Peach State, with 16 electoral votes. And joining us now is Professor Andra Gillespie, political science professor at Emory University in Atlanta. Professor, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. So tell us what you'll be paying attention to as the primary results start rolling in tonight.
Well, I assume that the primary results are going to affirm that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are going to win their respective primaries by large margins. I will pay attention to see how many people have participated in voting. It's important to keep in mind that there's been early voting that's gone on in Georgia for the last few weeks, and that actually predates Nikki Haley dropping out of the race, and even Dean Phillips dropping out of the race on the Democratic side. So there are many people who cast their ballots ahead of knowing that the fields have largely been cleared, but I do want to see how many people show up today. That certainly is going to be a test of the strength of organization for both parties in terms of get out the vote and mobilization, but it is not sort of a clear indication of everything. Both parties are going to have to start from scratch and make sure that they get people to turn out to vote in November.
Yeah, and how important is Georgia? And what's at stake there in the state?
Well, when we think about how battleground states get chosen, it gets chosen based on previous information. And so right now, the previous information includes the results of the 2020 election. And so right now, the focus is on states that were decided by very narrow margins in 2020. So Georgia's included in that, as well as Arizona and Nevada and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. But that's going to get updated over time. And so what people are going to be paying attention to are the polls in the states. Right now, though President Trump is ahead in the polls, those polls are usually within the statistical margin of error. So that means statistically they're tied. And so as long as the margins are so close that there isn't one clear presumptive winner in the state, both campaigns are going to feel justified in investing resources in the state. Democrats have to win Georgia, otherwise they probably won't win the election. And if Republicans were to lose the state, even though there still might be a path to 270 that doesn't include Georgia, it would be a huge psychological blow to Republicans who have consistently won this state, 2020 not accepting for the last generation.
Yeah, and I know Georgia really has grown a lot according to state projections. Since about 2020, the state has had about 375,000 residents. How does this influx of new people coming to the state, how does that impact things at the polls? And any indication of how, these new voters, which way they may vote?
Yeah, so if we go back over the last 20 years, what we've seen is that a lot of voters who have relocated to Georgia tend to be Democratic leaning in their orientation. In the 2000s, it was African Americans seeking economic opportunity, primarily in Metro Atlanta, who came back to the state or were coming back to their ancestral homelands, who brought their Democratic politics with them. And in more recent decades, we've seen Asian American and Latino voters who have relocated to the states. We've seen a more than doubling of the number of Asian American and Latino voters in the state. And while they're not 90% Democratic like African Americans are, they still tend to break more Democratic than Republican. In addition, if we think about industries like technology or film and television, these are industries that tend to attract more Democratic-leaning voters of any race. So even when we think about whites who have moved to the state, these aren't always conservative Republican voting whites who are coming to the state. So Georgia looks more multiracial and it looks more liberal in its orientation than its neighbors in the Deep South.
All right, and we're going to be watching to see what happens tonight. Professor Gillespie, great to be with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.